What were some immediate and continuing controversies surrounding the Irish famine? If you're curious about the Irish famine, one of the most significant events in Irish history, you might wonder what made it so contentious. Let's explore the controversies that arose during this period. The immediate cause of the famine was the failure of the potato crop due to the fungus Phytophthora infestans, but this natural disaster was exacerbated by several human factors. One of the most contentious issues was the export of food from Ireland during the famine. Despite the widespread starvation, large amounts of grain, meat, and other high-quality foods were exported to Britain. This policy, driven by the British government's adherence to laissez-faire economics, meant that the Irish people were left without access to the food they desperately needed. Another significant controversy was the British government's reluctance to intervene effectively. The government, led by Prime Minister Sir Robert Peel and later by Lord John Russell, initially took limited actions to alleviate the suffering. When Peel's government did act, it was often too little, too late. For example, the government's decision to halt the previous food and relief works and instead focus on public works projects proved inadequate. These projects, which employed hundreds of thousands of people, were poorly administered and did not provide enough support to those in need. The Gregory clause of the Poor Law introduced in June 1847 was another highly contentious measure. This clause prohibited anyone who held more than a quarter acre of land from receiving public outdoor relief. This meant that many farmers had to give up their land to qualify for aid, leading to widespread evictions. By 1850, over 104,000 people were evicted from their lands, further exacerbating the crisis. The attitude of some British officials and intellectuals towards the Irish people also fueled controversy. Charles Trevelyan, who was in charge of the administration of government relief, believed that the famine could bring about a more favorable economic situation for England by reducing the number of small farmers and consolidating land ownership. This view was shared by others who saw the famine as a necessary correction to what they perceived as flaws in the Irish national character. The response of the British government was often criticized for being too slow and insufficient. The financial burden of providing relief was largely placed on Irish landowners, who were soon unable to support the starving population. The British government's decision to raise a loan of £14 million to relieve the Irish crisis in 1847 led to a financial panic, reducing the amount of aid that could be provided. The role of soup kitchens, set up by charitable organizations and the British government, was also a point of contention. While these kitchens provided some relief, they were often inadequate and poorly managed. The reliance on imported cornmeal, which was not well received by the Irish, led to nutritional deficiencies and further suffering. In summary, the Irish famine was marked by several immediate and continuing controversies, including the export of food during a time of starvation, the inadequate and often harmful government responses, the harsh poor laws, and the negative attitudes of British officials towards the Irish people. These factors combined to make the famine a defining and deeply tragic event in Irish history.